Samuel chapter 9, where David wakes up one day and he says, is there anybody still left alive in the house of Saul? Anyone that I can show kindness to for Jonathan's sake? There was a servant by the name of Ziba in close proximity of King David. He says, watch this. He says, King David, there is someone left, but he's crippled. He's crippled. But David says, I didn't ask if he was crippled. I just said, is there anybody alive? But he says, yes, he's alive. He says, what is his name? He says, his name is Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth. We're going to call him Mo. Mephibosheth is a hard name. We're going to call him Mo for preaching's sake. It's already tongue-tied right now. We're going to call him Mo. He says, where does Mephibosheth, Mo, live? Where does he live? He says he lived in a place called Lodabar. But I want to parenthetically pause for one hot second and tell a few of you who are going to give God some praise, watch this. There's a lot of people that know you by your condition. But today I came to tell you they're getting ready to know you by your new position. God is getting ready to change somebody's position under the sound of my voice. But I love how David is non-judgmental. David doesn't change his mind because Jonathan's son is lame in both feet. Rather, King David, he commits to his decision. He says, tell me where he is. He's in a place called Lodabar. My friends, Lodabar is in essence a lonely, obscure place in northern Gilead. Lodabar, it literally means not having or no pasture. Lodabar was considered a town of forgotten people who lived a life of low hopes, low dreams, low resources, low on education materials, low on skills, and feeling low on love. Those who lived in Lodabar lived below our bar of life. This is what you call a poverty-stricken community. In this geographical location, the people intentionally bypassed and went around Lodabar. Similarly, we don't even think about places like Lodabar until we see a commercial on TV. These beloved children dealing with severe and extreme poverty. You know how it is when you sitting there in your living room watching TV and you see these commercials of these children in Africa. I'm here to tell you, it's not a commercial, it's their reality. They live off less than $1.90 a day. If it's the commercials we see with the hungry children plagued with diseases, struggling with physical and mental challenges, with no medication, hardly any education, most with no running water or toilet even in the home, living in a hut. And on top of that, some of these children are left in a traumatizing family situation, not having either a mother or father in a home. And they must get through the challenges that they are facing as a child. But here we go. Mo, he can relate. Listen to what happens in 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 4. Don't miss this context. It's going to be very important. Saul's son Jonathan had a son. Saul's son Jonathan had a son named Mephibosheth who was crippled as a child. So watch this. You got King Saul. You got Jonathan. Then you got Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth's father was Jonathan. His grandfather was King Saul. Watch this. He was 5 years old when the report came from Jezreel that Saul and Jonathan had both been killed in battle. When the child's nurse heard the news, she picked up Mo at 5 years old and began to run. War had broke out. Their protection is gone. The king is dead. His father is dead. And in her haste to run away, she drops Mephibosheth. He became crippled in both feet. All in one day. Mephibosheth lost his father Jonathan. He loses his grandfather Saul. He loses security in that his grandfather was king. And on top of that, he's dealing with a major loss at 5 years old, now being crippled in both feet. Crippled. Many of us are dealing with our own personal crippleness in our life. You came in this church this morning with your own crippled, broken heart. You're crippled in your hopes this morning, crippled in your mental thoughts, crippled in your dreams and aspirations, crippled in your career. And many of us come to church every Sunday dealing with some form of crippledness. It may not be that you are crippled in both of your feet. We are crippled because somebody dropped us at a time or two in our life. Somebody dropped somebody. And if truth be told, and if you're not afraid to be honest, it hurts that the person dropped you. It rocked you from center to circumference. It shook your mental and physical equilibrium. And some days you don't know if you're coming or going. How many of us in this place can testify, I'm still dealing with being traumatically dropped in life as a child? And it's showing up in your adult life. Some parent dropped you. Some loving relationship dropped you. Somebody physically or sexually abused you as a child. You're dropped by your daddy, dropped by your mama, dropped by a friend who you thought would never leave your side, dropped by something that changed your life. And today it's still showing up in your life. Brothers and sisters, that's what poverty feels like to millions of children and families all over the world. Poverty makes them feel like they've been dropped. Poverty, it is crippling to the mind. It's crippling to the body. It's crippling to the soul. As aforementioned, poverty, it is a disease that no one can ever make you feel like you're cared about. Poverty, it's a disease of dis-ease. Poverty, it literally makes you feel like God created you, but it don't love you. Poverty, it is something that all of us in this building today could not imagine living in a hut. Your carpet is dirt. Your bed is a dirt of hill with maybe a mattress. God, he didn't forget Mephibosheth. But there's hope. There's hope. Watch this. There's hope in the text today, y'all. Because the truth be told, just like Mephibosheth dealt with his crippleness, just like you and I have been dropped romantically, physically, financially, spiritually in our own life, I came with the word of hope this morning to tell you that, watch this, if you find it in yourself, if you ever find yourself living below the bar, the first truth that we can find in this text today is, number one, our position can change because of a previous promise. Repeat after me. My position will change because of a previous promise. Verse 7 says, don't be afraid, David says. He's talking to Mephibosheth in verse 7. I intend to show you kindness because of my promise to your father Jonathan. You can find the context in First Samuel chapter 20. Y'all, I really do teach Bible. I'm not telling you nothing that's not true. The context is in 1 Samuel 20, verse 14 and 17. Listen to the exchange between David and Jonathan. Watch this. It says, and you may treat me with the fruitful love of the Lord as long as I live. This is 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 14 through 17. It says, verse 15, but if I die, Jonathan says to David, treat my family with this faithful love, even when the Lord destroys all your enemies from the face of the earth. This is what Jonathan is saying. He says, my friend, when I pass in this battle on your behalf, don't forget about my family. If I end up dying fighting for you, can you show my family the same love that I've shown you? Verse 16, so Jonathan made a solemn pact with David, saying, may the Lord destroy all your enemies. Verse 17, and Jonathan made David reaffirm his vow of his friendship. He says, now listen, I'm getting ready to sacrifice my whole life. Can you please reaffirm that you got my back? That you got my kids when I'm gone? That you're going to make sure that they good, they got a roof over their head, they got food on the table, that they got somewhere to live? David says, I got you. David says, I got you. Brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to show you this morning, if God can use two friends, if God can use two friends, and David, he keeps his promise, how much more will God fulfill his promises for you and your family? Some of that went right over your heads. You don't hear me this morning. If God can use me and Pastor Jackson to keep a promise to each other, how much more will God fulfill the promises that he promised you and your family? What promises are you referring to, young preacher? I'm so glad you asked. There's a promise that I read over in Psalms 138, verse 8, where it says, the Lord will perfect that which concerneth you. Some of you right now, you're concerned this morning how things going to turn out. Some of you, you're wondering how things are going to work out. Some of you, you're wondering how your job, how your health, how your relationships are going to turn out. I came by to give you a promise. That which concerneth the Lord, here it is, that concerneth you, the Lord, he's going to work it out. You ought to turn to a neighbor and say, neighbor, God. Y'all ain't talking to your neighbor. I'm a Baptist preacher. I said turn to a neighbor and say, neighbor, God is going to turn it around for you. That neighbor, they ain't believe you. I need somebody who need God to do something in their life. You need healing in your body. You need God to come and set your son free, your child free. Say, God, I need you. Keep your promise for my family. Watch this. Watch this. There's another promise that you can hold true to God in Ephesians 3:20 when it says, now unto him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. Somebody say, God is able. He's able to perfect our path in life. He's able to pull us out of the muck and mire and set our feet on a rock to stay. He's able to fulfill the prayers your mama prayed. He's able to fulfill the prayers your daddy prayed. He's able to fulfill the prayers Big Mama prayed and Papa prayed. God is able to keep his promise. Tell your neighbor, we serve a promise-keeping God. But not only do we see the crippled position change because of a promise, but second of all, we see our position can change because of providential placement. Verse 7. Don't be afraid, David says. I intend to show kindness to you, Mo, because my promise to your father, Jonathan, I know you don't feel like you deserve it. I know you don't feel like what I'm getting ready to do for you, you just, because he ain't used to the favor that's getting ready to be upon your life. I know, Mo, you don't feel like you deserve it because this blessing is it's something you've never had before. watch what David gives Mephibosheth. He says, even though you just came from Lodabar, living below the bar, he says, I'm going to give you all of the property that once belonged to your grandfather Saul. That's shouting news right there. I don't know who needs God to bless you. I don't know how your bank account look. I don't know what you need. All I'm telling you, if God did it for little Mo, God can do it for me. Open up your mouth this morning and say, God, whatever you have, I'm willing to receive it. Thank you, God, for not forgetting me. But watch this. Not only did David says, I'm going to give you all the property that belonged to your grandfather Saul's, but this is the shouting news. He says, Mo, you're going to eat at my table for the rest of your life. Is there anybody in here that can testify that God is a promise-keeping God, that what you once struggled with, God will pull you out. He'll take you from one place to overflow. Here it is. Bo went from living below the bar to above the bar. Bo went from being overlooked to sought out. Bo went from a land of no pasture to owning his own pasture. Bo went from not having to having everything he needed. Bo went from sitting in a lonely place to a higher place at the king's table. My brothers and sisters, when you sign up to spiritually adopt a child, watch this, and to write them letters and to pray for them and to send birthday gifts or to send Christmas gifts for only $43 a month. This experience to a child in El Salvador, in Haiti, in Africa, is likened unto them being pulled out of Lodabar. All of us this morning have the power to be a King David in a kid's life. We got the power to show that level of kindness, to say, I'm a skip Starbucks for 1 week. I don't know what y'all chicken you eat down here. I don't know if it's Miss Wiener's, if it's Chick-fil-A, if whatever your chicken place. I'm going to skip one hot chicken meal for 1 week, and I'm going to put it to the side because I'm going to show kindness to a kid who has no food. I'm going to be selfless for 1 week and put away about $10 a week just to show kindness to a child. Listen, you got the power to pull a child out of poverty for less than $2 a day. And that is like them going to the king's palace. When their name is called out amongst other children who have been waiting on a sponsor, just imagine if your pastor, Dr. Robert Jackson, was living in an obscure land in Togo, Africa, living in a place where he had no food, but only from the church house. Had challenges with his father, and father left the house, but his mother was raising him. Just imagine if St. Paul heard about a child named Robert